Imagine spending like 60 years sitting in silent, agonizing meditation in a freezing cave.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no thanks.
Right. You've given up all your worldly possessions, isolated yourself from society, and basically dedicated every waking second to this incredibly slow, grueling process of chipping away at your own ego.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine someone tapping you on the shoulder and telling you that you could have achieved that exact same level of ultimate spiritual enlightenment becoming a Buddha overnight.
That sounds like a cheat code.
It really does. It sounds like a cheap modern life hack, doesn't it? Something you'd see in a clickbait article online.
It absolutely sounds like a gimmick at first glance. I mean, we have this deeply ingrained assumption that spiritual awakening demands a marathon of endurance.
Right, like it has to be painful.
Exactly. The idea of an overnight Buddha feels almost offensive to the traditional image of the solitary suffering ascetic.
Yeah.
But when you actually dig into the underlying philosophy we're looking at today, you realize it isn't about, skipping steps out of laziness. It is a profoundly detailed synthesis of ancient spiritual mechanics meeting the hyper-accelerated reality we are all living in right now.
And that tension is exactly what we are unpacking in this deep dive today. We have a single, incredibly dense essay on the table by a writer named Srufeng.
Yes.
It's titled A Shortcut to Buddhahood, Illuminating the Mind and Perceiving True Nature. And our mission today is to extract the core insights from this text to figure out how this modern spiritual shortcut actually functions.
Mm-hmm. And why it requires us to completely dismantle everything we think we know about our own consciousness.
Exactly.
The author challenges the listener to discard their basic assumptions almost immediately. To even entertain the premise of this text, we have to start by addressing that inherent skepticism you brought up.
Okay.
How can a process that historically took a lifetime suddenly happen between sunset and sunrise?
We really need to establish that why before we can even touch the how. Why is a shortcut uniquely possible in the modern era?
Right, the timing matters.
The text uses some vivid analogies regarding the compression of time, focusing heavily on how human travel and communication have fundamentally changed.
Yeah, the comparisons drawn in the essay are meant to shock our sense of scale. Think about moving across the globe.
Yeah.
2,000 years ago, a journey of 10,000 miles was an epic undertaking.
Oh, completely.
It would take at least 100 days of relentless, dangerous travel by foot or animal.
Yeah, you might not even survive.
Exactly. Today, you board a commercial airplane, watch a few movies, and that exact same distance is covered in a single day.
Right.
The physical space didn't shrink, but our navigation of it was entirely compressed.
The communication analogy hits even closer to home, I think.
Yeah.
200 years ago, if you needed to send an urgent message just 100 miles away, you were reliant on a person riding a horse.
Right. The Pony Express style.
Yeah, and you'd wait 2 days just for the information to arrive.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you pull a piece of glass out of your pocket, type a text message, and the recipient reads it in the literal blink of an eye.
The essay applies that precise logic of extreme compression to spiritual evolution. Historically, attaining Buddhahood was bound by the speed of ancient methods.
Like the meditation we talked about?
Yes. It required strict discipline and precepts, decades of deep meditation, and the slow accumulation of wisdom. But the author argues that the universe has shifted.
Shifting how?
Well, there is no longer a need for that prolonged, drawn-out effort. If you understand the specific mechanism of human consciousness, Buddhahood can be realized instantly.
I see the logic of the comparison, but my modern brain immediately wants to push back on this.
Of course.
Is the author suggesting that because we invented jet engines and fiber optic cables, the spiritual realm just decided to speed up to match our convenience? Because that feels incredibly human-centric.
Yeah, it does.
Or is the text arguing that the actual fabric of spiritual evolution has fundamentally changed?
That is a crucial distinction, and the text leans entirely into the latter. This acceleration has nothing to do with human technological convenience. The essay frames this rapid pace as a direct response to the shifting environmental and spiritual conditions of the universe itself. It describes this as the arrangement of the Tao.
The arrangement of the Tao.
Yes, and it uses a very urgent, specific phrase. It says we are currently in a period that necessitates a rapid spiritual harvest.
A harvest. Wow. That carries a lot of weight.
It does.
If you're harvesting, it means a long season of growth is coming to an abrupt end.
That's the underlying implication, yeah. The conditions of the field have changed. You simply don't have 50 years left to sit on a mountaintop.
So the clock is ticking.
Exactly. Time is of the essence. So the methodology for enlightenment had to adapt to become instantaneous.
Okay, let's unpack this. If the universe is demanding a rapid harvest and time is up, we need to know the mechanism. How do we actually utilize this overnight shortcut?
Right, we need the how.
According to the text, the absolute first step is a concept called illuminating the mind. But to do that, the author forces us to redefine what the mind actually is, basically stripping away a lot of modern biology.
Because if you ask someone on the street where their mind is, they're going to point directly to their forehead.
Yeah, they point to the brain, the physical gray matter inside the skull.
The essay explicitly rejects that. It states unequivocally that the mind is not a physiological organ of flesh. It isn't the brain. It isn't the heart.
Right.
The author even jokes that it certainly isn't located in your heel. The physical body does not contain a tangible object called a mind.
So if it's not physical tissue, my instinct is to say, well, then it's just our psychology, it's our memories, our personality. Does the text agree with that, or is it pointing to something more mechanical?
It is entirely mechanical. The text defines the mind strictly as the rise of thoughts and perceptions triggered by interactions.
Interactions with what?
It is the result of your 6 faculties: your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and consciousness, interacting with the external material world, as well as the non-material world.
So the mind isn't a thing, it's an event.
Yes, it is purely reactionary. The essay uses this beautiful, serene analogy of a calm lake.
Oh, I love this one.
Yeah, it says the mind arises due to specific conditions, and without those conditions, it simply does not arise. It is exactly like waves on that lake. The waves only emerge when the wind blows.
Right.
The moment the wind stops, the waves subside, and the lake returns to perfect stillness.
If you're listening to this while walking your dog or commuting to work, you are experiencing 1,000 winds right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Your eyes see the road, your ears hear the traffic, your body feels the temperature of the air. The text is telling you that those inputs are the wind. If you were somehow placed in a total sensory void, eyes perceiving nothing, ears hearing nothing, tongue tasting nothing, consciousness intuiting nothing, the text argues that your mind wouldn't just be quiet. It would literally cease to exist.
The mind only resides in what the text terms the operational structure of the non-material essence of life. It's conditional. It is a temporary manifestation.
Think of it this way. The mind isn't a permanent physical object like a television set sitting in your living room. It's more like the image on the screen. The image only exists when a signal is being actively broadcast and the TV is turned on to receive it.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. If you cut the sensory cables, the broadcast drops, the screen goes black, and the mind vanishes.
That captures the conditional nature perfectly. The physical hardware remains, but the software only runs when prompted.
Yeah.
Truly grasping this precise, impermanent nature of your own thoughts, realizing that your internal monologue is just a series of echoes from sensory inputs. That is exactly what the essay means by the phrase illuminating the mind.
You realize you aren't the television set and you aren't the broadcast. You are simply observing the signal.
Exactly.
But recognizing that your mind is just a reaction is only half the puzzle. Once you realize you're just observing the waves, you naturally have to ask, what is the water made of?
Yes.
And what is the ultimate reality beneath all this sensory noise? And that leads directly to the second half of the shortcut, which the author calls perceiving true nature.
What's fascinating here is how expansive and absolute the text gets when defining the word nature. Because your mind is just a temporary sensory reaction, you have to search for what is actually permanent.
Right.
The essay elevates nature to the highest possible status, calling it the gateway to all mysteries.
Hold on. We need to clarify what the author means by nature, because the text throws out some incredibly dense terminology here.
It really does.
It equates nature with Tathagata, with the primordial Hundan, and with the consciousness of the greatest creator. For those of us who aren't scholars of Eastern philosophy, what do these terms actually mean in plain English?
It is a lot of heavy terminology, but they all point to the exact same underlying concept. Tathagata is a Buddhist term that essentially means thusness.
Thusness.
Yeah, it's the ultimate unconditioned reality of how things truly are, stripped of all human illusion. Hundan comes from Chinese philosophy, referring to the primordial, undifferentiated state of the universe before form and shape were created. By grouping these together, the author is saying that nature is the absolute foundational blueprint of existence.
It's the core code.
Exactly. It is the fundamental law of the cosmos that governs the evolution of all life.
And the wildly ambitious part of this essay is its insistence that this blueprint isn't exclusive to holy sites or enlightened beings. It is entirely universal. Absolutely everything possesses a fundamental nature.
The text lists specific examples to hammer home this universality. It states that mountains have mountain nature, water has water nature, beasts have beast nature, humans have human nature.
It covers everything.
It even categorizes it further, stating that men have masculine nature, women have feminine nature, immortals have immortal nature, and Buddhas have Buddha nature.
It even pushes past physical objects. The text mentions the 36 dimensions of the universe, claiming that each of those dimensions possesses its own intrinsic space nature. It makes this sweeping declaration. It says, without nature, there is no universe. Without nature, there is no life. But this brings up a massive conceptual question.
Okay, what is it?
If literally everything, from a mountain to a drop of water, all the way up to the 36 dimensions of the universe has its own specific fundamental nature, does recognizing my own internal human nature automatically give me the key to understanding the rest of the cosmos?
If we trace the logic of the essay, the answer is a resounding yes. Since all of these different expressions of nature, the mountain, the water, the human, are governed by the exact same fundamental law of the cosmos, they share the same origin.
Okay.
The consciousness of the greatest creator is this single thread running through all of it. So the moment you strip away the temporary ways of your own mind and perceive your true inner nature, you are suddenly looking at the exact same source code that built the mountains and the dimensions.
We have these two monumental concepts on the table now. Illuminating the mind, the realization that your daily thoughts are just temporary reactions to external inputs, and perceiving true nature, recognizing the eternal universal blueprint beneath everything. But why does the author insist on a strict chronological order here? Why must illuminating the mind absolutely happen before you can perceive true nature?
Because the temporary noise completely obscures the permanent reality. If your mind is clouded by sensory reactions, if the lake is churning with a violent storm of waves, you cannot possibly see the calm depths below.
Ah, that makes sense.
The temporary distractions hide the permanent blueprint. Illuminating the mind is the mandatory prerequisite.
To explain this sequence, the essay uses two vivid, incredibly grounded analogies that really help clarify the mechanics. The first is the experience of a dark room.
Imagine walking into a room that is pitch black.
Yeah.
You have absolutely no visual sensory input.
You're fumbling around blindly, you're probably anxious, bumping your shins against unseen objects.
Exactly.
You know, intellectually that there's furniture in the room, but you have no idea what it looks like or where it's placed. You are entirely in the dark. Then your hand brushes against the switch and you turn on the light. That exact instantaneous flash of the bulb illuminating the space, that split second where darkness becomes light, that is the act of illuminating the mind.
And building on that, the immediate consequence of the light turning on is that the contents of the room are revealed.
Yes.
You suddenly see the heavy oak chair, the glass table, the exact color of the walls. Seeing the reality of the room clearly, exactly as it is without guessing, that is perceiving true nature.
So you have to flip the switch first.
You simply cannot perceive the chair until the mechanism of the light has been activated.
The second analogy focuses on a different sense entirely, and it's even more visceral. It involves three identical-looking glasses of liquid sitting on a table.
This one requires you to imagine the direct physical sensation. One glass contains soda water, one has heavily sugared water, and the third is filled with intense salt water.
But to your eyes, they all just look like perfectly clear, plain drinking water. If your mind is clouded by assumption, you might look at them and mistakenly categorize them all as identical. Your perception is flawed before you even begin.
So, to find the truth, you pick one up and take a sip. Think about the exact millisecond that liquid hits the taste buds on your tongue.
Oh, yeah.
That initial shocking flash of raw sensory data before your brain has even formulated a word to describe it, that pure moment of direct realization is illuminating the mind.
It's the moment the wind hits the lake.
Hmm.
And then the immediate discernment that inevitably follows, your brain categorizing the experience, realizing, oh, this is incredibly astringent, or this is sweet, or this is overpoweringly salty. That realization of the liquid's fundamental underlying characteristic is perceiving true nature.
By using these analogies, the author establishes a very strict, almost mathematical hierarchy of human spiritual evolution, based entirely on where a person sits within this two-step process.
Let's run through that hierarchy. The text argues that if you have zero illumination, if you are still fumbling in the pitch-black room, or blindly assuming all the glasses are plain water, you are classified as an ordinary being.
You're just in the dark.
Yeah, you are just part of the masses, completely lost in the sensory waves.
However, The moment you achieve that first step, the second you manage to turn on the light or take that initial realizing sip, your status changes entirely.
Mhm.
According to the text, with illumination, one officially becomes a saint.
But the journey doesn't end there, because you can have the light on and still lack understanding.
Right.
You can taste the water and still not comprehend the recipe. The essay states that without perceiving the true nature of what you're experiencing, even an illuminated saint remains functionally blind.
Yeah, they are still an ignorant person, a worldly mortal, or, at their absolute best, a sage.
To reach the pinnacle, you must achieve the synthesis of both steps. If you illuminate the conditional mind and subsequently achieve true, unobstructed perception of the eternal nature of reality, the text says you transform into a celestial being. You become a Buddha.
That's the ultimate goal.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We've spent a lot of time defining these concepts. We know the hierarchy, we understand the dark room and the glasses of water, but theory is useless without practice.
Absolutely.
If this spiritual harvest is happening right now in the modern world, how does a person actually apply this? How do you achieve this state when your smartphone is buzzing and the world is chaotic?
The author points to a deeply revered method, attributing it directly to Shakyamuni Buddha. The core instruction is just a few words long, but it is deceptively difficult to execute.
What is it?
Let the mind arise without dwelling.
Let the mind arise without dwelling. Okay, let's translate that out of the philosophical realm.
Yeah.
If I'm driving to work and someone aggressively cuts me off in traffic, my eyes see the car, that's the sensory input, the wind hits the lake. My mind instantly arises in the form of a flash of anger or fear.
That initial flash is unavoidable. You have eyes and a nervous system, you cannot stop the input from registering.
But the dwelling part is what happens next, right?
Yes.
It's when I grip the steering wheel, honk the horn, and spend the next 3 hours at my desk mentally replaying the incident, letting that anger fester. I've let the wind whip the lake into a permanent storm.
That is the perfect modern example. Dwelling is the human tendency to latch onto the form, the sound, or the thought. The instruction is to experience the input. Let the mind arise, but refuse to hold on to it.
Just let it pass.
Exactly. Do not let your consciousness take root in the form, smell, taste, touch, or thought. You allow the flash of anger to pass through you instantly, and the lake returns to perfect glass the very next second. It is the active practice of achieving a state of no mind.
And the essay is adamant that it is only within this absolute, unbothered state of no mind that true nature is finally revealed. To reinforce this, the author brings in one of the most famous pieces of Buddhist scripture in existence, the Heart Sutra.
The Heart Sutra is essentially the ancient blueprint for this exact state of no mind. The essay quotes the experience of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, who, through deep practice, perceived that all 5 skandhas, the basic components of human, physical, and mental existence, are entirely empty.
This leads to arguably the most famous line in all of Eastern philosophy form is emptiness, and emptiness is form.
Right.
But what does that actually mean for someone trying to practice this shortcut?
It's the ultimate dismantling of the sensory world we just discussed. The sutra explains that in this profound state of emptiness, there is no form, feeling, perception, impulse, or consciousness.
So it's totally blank.
The practitioner reaches a state where there is no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or mind. No color, sound, smell, taste, or touch. It systematically erases the power of every single sensory input.
You are systematically unplugging every single cable from the back of the television set until the screen is completely blank.
Precisely. And the sutra states that by relying on prajnaparamita, one reaches the ultimate goal.
Let's clarify prajnaparamita. The text calls it the great miraculous mantra, but practically speaking, it translates to the perfection of wisdom, right?
Yes.
It's the supreme lens of clarity that sees through all human illusions.
Exactly. It is the ultimate realization of emptiness. By depending on that perfect wisdom, the sutra concludes there is no longer any hindrance in the mind. And where there is no hindrance, there is no fear.
Wow.
The practitioner departs from all backward, inverted views of reality and dwells entirely in nirvana.
It is a total deconstruction of everything we consider to be real life. The essay also notes that for listeners who want to explore this profound emptiness further, the author strongly recommends reading a piece called The Fundamental Melody of Life, Part 4.
Yes, by Kinkun Buddha.
Right, found in the Chanyuan Masters series. It acts as a companion piece to help facilitate this exact perception of true nature.
The author is giving the reader a practical roadmap. The ancient wisdom is thousands of years old, but the urgency for the reader to apply it is immediate.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We've traveled from the modern acceleration of time and the urgency of a spiritual harvest through the realization that your thoughts are just temporary reactions, all the way to the absolute stillness of the Heart Sutra.
It's quite a journey.
It really is. But how do you know if you've actually succeeded? How do you know if the shortcut worked?
The essay concludes with a remarkably straightforward litmus test. Check your current mental state. If you are still confused about your life,
If you harbor deep anxiety about your purpose,
yeah, exactly, or why you are participating in this chaotic world, then you have not achieved illumination. Your mind is still completely dominated by the wind and the waves.
but if you clearly understand the meaning of life and you comprehensively grasp the mysteries of life's evolution based on the exact mechanisms we've explored today, the author says that clarity is the only proof you need.
That's all it takes.
It proves you have illuminated your mind. It proves you have perceived your true nature.
And if you meet those criteria, the essay makes a breathtaking claim. It says you have already become a Buddha. You have successfully bypassed decades of rigid, agonizing meditation.
Overnight.
Overnight, you have returned to what the text calls Yuanchu, the original, uncorrupted, awakened state that aligns perfectly with the greatest creator.
It is an incredibly bold promise. It takes the ultimate, seemingly unreachable spiritual summit and places it right here, accessible in a single profound flash of realization.
It really does.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, the mechanics of this text leave us with one lingering, almost haunting paradox to think about.
The concept of the empty mind naturally invites a massive contradiction, doesn't it?
It really does. The essay establishes that the mind only exists as a reaction to external sensory inputs. It is nothing more than the wind creating waves on the lake.
Right.
It also insists that the ultimate spiritual goal is perfect no mind, where all of those sensory reactions cease and the lake becomes absolute glass. But if the mind literally ceases to exist without those inputs, in that absolute flawless stillness of no mind, when every television cable is finally cut and the screen goes completely dark, who, or what, is the you that actually remains to experience being a Buddha?